So you brought up something really good. It's the Australian Energy Market Operators Integrated System Plan. What also gets thrown around in discussions at the moment is CSIRO's Gencost Report that they release every couple of years as well. So can you tell us what the difference is between Gencost and what you've modelled? Because they often get compared, but from my perspective, are two completely different models.
Yeah, it's very different. So the integrated system plan relies on a whole bunch of technical and cost assumptions about how power stations work. And the CSIRO's involvement really came as sort of part of the whole kind of FINCL era reforms. And so CSIRO do not have a pedigree in this area at all. The energy market or the energy system had done a really good job itself for a century, developing its own cost assumptions and technical assumptions. And so, in fact, I said this in a recent interview, and it was reported that that I had sensationally disrespected CSIRO's involvement. It really is, in my realm, a very recent thing, and so I'll stand by that. And what CSIRO do is they prepare a range of cost and technical parameters that are used within the integrated system plan. So what they do is something completely different from the integrated system plan. It's just the input assumptions, really. A whole range of input assumptions is what they do. Why they enter the debate about the relative costs of things is kind of beyond me, because I'm talking about what we refer to as the unit cost of something, and that is the average cost of production of, say, renewables, or the average cost of production of nuclear. Whereas the integrated system plan is something called the total system cost. And this is going back to the earlier discussion we had about the optimal energy mix. This is figuring out kind of what's the best blend of all of the different technologies to meet the requirements for volatile demand. Generators have to switch on, switch off, and they've all got different characteristics. Some can switch off and on very quickly, some can't. And so in this optimal system plan, you have to have regard to the volatility of demand, technical characteristics of the generators, the cost characteristics of those generators. You need like a very complex mathematical optimization process to figure out, the best mix. And CSIRO provide input into it. It's not the same thing as what the integrated system plan, very different thing.
Gencost has costs for individual generator types with levelized cost of energy, but it also has firm renewables. What do you make of their effort to come up for a cost of firm renewables?
Yeah, it's completely pointless because the firming really is kind of what the total systems cost does. Because what happens in the optimization process, I don't want to get too technical, but it's been a mathematical kind of optimization. There are so-called penalty violations if demand is not met. And so the model says, okay, well, I have to build a bit more of this or a bit more of that to make sure that demand is met. And so no one pays attention to anything that CSIRO says about the firm cost, because that's what actually happens in the optimization, because it's looking at the interaction with all of the generators under all circumstances at all times. Whereas what CSIRO tried to do is kind of narrow the focus on just one time slice. And of course, it's so crude as to be useless. And so we never pay any attention to that. What I do is I use the same assumptions in the integrated system plan that AEMO does, many of which I don't agree with, but I've accepted it. And the integrated system plan actually doesn't pay any attention to the CSIRO firm renewable costs either. And so I do it exactly the same way that the Australian Energy Market Operator does.
So when Gencost comes to the conclusion that firm renewables are cheaper than nuclear, what do you make of that?
Oh, it's completely bogus. It's like I say, it's such a partial analysis. It's of no value whatsoever. And so and as I pointed out in report one, and there's this question when people ask me, why did I do report one, report two? I wanted to explain to people the basis on which you should compare the costs of two different systems, and it should be a system. not, like a nuclear or a firmed up renewable. That's really kind of not part of the system. And so I wanted to explain that the best basis of comparison is using the integrated system plan. And so I wanted to demonstrate that I can replicate almost precisely what the Australian Energy Market Operator does with our model, and then say, I'm going to just change just one thing, and I'm just going to put nuclear in the middle of it, and then I'm going to say to the model, now re-optimize, change everything so that if that nuclear is there, adjust everything else so everything else is cost optimal.
So I want to wind this back a little bit to go to the layperson. So Jazz, who doesn't have good expertise in the energy system, when you talk about firmed renewables, are you talking about an overbuild of the system to deal with potential capacity and demand?
So firm, well, depends on your definition. So firm renewables to most energy people are the cost of building an intermittent renewable generator, and then to provide some backup for that to provide sort of reliable power. And so that could be batteries plus gas generation.
Right.
Yeah, and then it just does this on a very sort of narrow basis. It doesn't look at it over all market conditions. It just says,
So we're going to isolate.
it's completely isolated.
Yeah, okay.